Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Eddie Marcus here again, spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people. When I speak of basic human rights for all people, I'm speaking for those of you who are animal lovers. You say animal rights. You believe that animals should be protected and that they should have the best that humans can give them as far as being entitled and blessed in the society. Basic animal rights. When it comes down to human beings have been formed and shaped and put on this earth. Now, those basic human rights, these are human rights that are essential and major for their existence. These are rights. As a human being, you have the right to exist until something takes your life away from you. And it should not be the system for which you live. That is basic human rights for those of you who've had some problems understanding it. And I'm not talking about an organization set up by the government or set up by somebody for when somebody come back and get on your property or violate some other little concern that you might have. Then they stand up for your human right. That's not a human right. That might be a civil right. It might be any other kind of right. But human rights has to do with survival. Human rights has to do with survival. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so very much for receiving me in my role this morning. It's a Sunday morning. I'm looking at television and I'm watching the news and Trump and all the things, antics that he goes through. And I'm watching what happened in Walmart, trucks coming out of Mexico, I believe, or someplace, and end up in Texas with a bunch of people dying. Don't call it human trafficking, all of these kinds of things. And I'm watching the news and I'm watching the weather. I'm looking at all of these storms. I'm 67 years old. I've never seen or heard of anything like this before. I've heard of global warming, but people trying to still deny that. And what impact it might have on this weather conditions, we're not sure. But I do know that there's something that's been happening for quite some time. They call it HAARP. It's a weather system that's set up by mankind. And we know mankind will use stuff to have their way. That's what happened with the nukes. They wanted to use energy for a good cause, but they ended up making the bombs. And they wanted to do this for that, but they did it for something else. And so we're talking about this weather system. A weather system that's controlled by humankind to inflict injury and pain and all of these kinds of things on location, that it might affect people in a strange kind of way. We have a president we know has no business being president of the United States, has no idea what that means, and he's trying to destroy the American system of government, going right along with the Republicans. They are going along with it. Now, that's not their intent to destroy the government, but they are Republicans, and they are doggish, and well, let me say, when I say they're doggish, that don't mean that they are doggish alone. Democrats are doggish as well. And every other little party in there is doggish. It's just that right now, the Republicans have a chance to show their doggedness, and that they are showing it. So, what I'm saying is that why, when I'm looking at all of these weather conditions, when cities and towns that have never flooded have turned into seas or lakes, and when I'm looking at trees and stuff that have been hanging up 1,000 years, at least hundreds, and they're falling over like timber wolves. Well, somebody said, well, they're so old, they couldn't help but fall up. Be that as it may, they withstood a lot of stuff, but the weather stuff that's coming now is hard to withstand. And so I want to just suggest that those who have been claiming that HAARP has been designed not to be used only by the United States, but other countries also have access, and none of this is just being used by the country. This is being used by the powers that be, the people that run the world. They are the ones that make decisions. You know, the United States can't operate a weather system to cause harm to Russia or Russia to the United States. No, this has to be done at the highest levels, the highest level of humankind. Those people who run the money, those people who have usurped all the power from the people, that which was given to them. And so if a decision is being made like that, it seems as if a decision has been made to destroy America with rain and fires and anything else they can come up with. I'm not saying it's true, but think about it. And those of you who are talking about HAARP, look into it. Now, what I really want to talk to you about today is the fake government and the fake church. Now you hear Donald Trump talking about fake stuff, but you can't trust Donald Trump because he'll tell you one thing today, and tomorrow when somebody else says it, he calls it fake. So I'm not talking about that kind of fake. I'm talking about the kind of fake that can be verified. Now, why am I saying it's fake? Well, let's look at the government. Our government exists, and within our system of government, we have all kinds of pain, all kinds of suffering, all kind of pain, all kind of suffering. And that's a violation of human rights. Wherever people are suffering, wherever people are going through pain that does not have to exist, it is a violation of their basic human rights, their rights for survival. Now, I say the government. For 40 years approximately, I have been in contact with government. Over the past 40 years, I have been in communication one way or other with the governors of the 50 states. Now, you might have a governor right now that I have not contacted, but somewhere in the span of these 40 years, I have contacted every governor, talking about ways for peace and prosperity, and at least introducing to them to the idea that I have a plan. I want you to know that in 40 years, not one governor has responded back to me. I've written to the presidents of the United States, all the way back to, well, I know Clinton. That Herbert Bush, I'm not sure about him. And I got a response back from Clinton. It wasn't from Clinton, it was from the White House, some official letterhead that they put out, but it didn't mean anything. Nobody. I've contacted mayors in various cities. I've contacted newspapers all over the country, pleading for support in relieving people of their pain and suffering. Ladies and gentlemen, I have not heard back from one iota in 40 years of the people that I've been speaking to about your basic human rights as far as government is concerned. But you keep putting them in there, and they don't give a darn about you. And I can only say that you keep putting them in there because you don't give a darn about yourself. You wouldn't agree with that because you don't even know that. It slipped up on you. And your actions indicate that you don't care about yourself, but you don't even know it. So I call the government a fake government. I call it a fake government because the plan was that if you as human beings exist on a plane that has been paired for your survival and you are being denied that, then you've been violated. And so your government is violating your basic human rights with your approval. Not just the government of the United States, but the government of every country on the face of the earth. There is not one place where pain and suffering is not experienced by some of the people. And it's not good enough that you say the 1% is protected. It's not even good enough if you say the 99% is protected. Because if one is not protected, then that government is counterfeit. I know you don't believe that. You've been taught that you can't satisfy everybody. Well, that was the intent. And if it's not happening, let it not be because you approve of it. Now, this is what I want to tell you about the fake government. You can change it. You can change it. But you can't change it by bringing in people like Donald Trump. See, Donald Trump was built on hate. Donald Trump was built on Republicans who did not like the fact that Barack Obama was president of the United States. They did not like the fact that a slave, representative of a slave, was now in the White House. The White House was written as White House. White House, it meant it was the house of white folks. No black person had a chance to ever get in there, but Barack Obama did. And having done so, he was hated by white folks, but not all white folks. Barack Obama never could have gotten in that White House without the support of white people. But those haters, those guys when he got in office who would not do one thing to support anything that Barack Obama was trying to do, they would always be against it. Everything he tried to do against health care, they were against it. Things that he tried to do to bring in some kind of restrictions on the way certain systems worked, they were against it. They were so against it, they talked about him so bad, they tried to make him look so doggone devilish. and denied the hope that the people had in Barack Obama because he had no support from the other party. And so the people angry, and they ended up bringing in a nut job like Donald Trump. Now you might say, why would I call Donald Trump a nut? Because he acts like a nut. He acts just like a nut. That's why I call him a nut job. Now, let me hold up on the government, because most of you already know that. The other fake institution is the church. In the church, they tell you about the love of God. They talk about how the world was created. They talk about how man was created, how Jesus came to the earth to show men that they did not operate in the prism of what heaven had designed. And he wanted to bring them back, show them that it was not man, it was not Caesar, it was not Pharaoh, it was not the white man, it was not the black man or the native man or the woman that was in charge of everything. It was a spirit, unseen, that was responsible for all existence. And that spirit wanted to let you know that the suffering that was being engaged, that you were being engaged in, did not have to exist, but the power to do it rest in your faith in a power outside of humankind. That meaning you acting according to the will of the spiritual power, not that of your partner who was out to deceive. So, in essence, they were saying that you got to change from the stuff that you've been accepting because it's all fake. All fake. You talk about suffering. The government is what the government is. They violate basic human rights because they left God out. Not the fact, well, in reality, they didn't leave God out. They left the God of love out. Or the God of hate is well and alive, running all over the planet, going to and fro, trying to see what it can destroy. That's the God of hate. In fact, this God of hate, I understand some people use this God of hate to say that this God requires that they go out and slaughter a bunch of individuals in this God's name and kill themselves in the process, and they will be united with some extra benefits after they leave this world. I heard that there was a God somewhere that authorized the military to go in and slaughter every living thing. A God that they want you to believe is the same God that said, thou shalt not kill. That is not the same God, ladies and gentlemen. One is the God of truth, one is the God of a lie. And where truth and lie mix, the people always suffer. Because they choose the lie, because the lie seems to be so pretty. You see, the lie is like this. Right now, you got people who got jobs. You got people who are making plenty of money. You got people who are making goo-gaws of money. You got people who are making a little money. And you got people who are making no money. Now, if you start talking about changing the system, those people who have no money, those people who got a little money, and those people who got a little bit more money might be willing to listen to that. But those people who got a lot of money and goo-gaws of money will not listen to a thing you say. Why? Because their God is the money. And the stuff about having some compassion for people, they will say, well, I give to charity. But in the same time, the system that allows them to make the kind of money that they're making creates the charities, the need for the charities. You have people who give up their children because they are unfit to take care of them, and you call up with a child protection agency. You come up and say, well, we have this agency designed to protect. Those agencies are not designed to protect. Those agencies are designed to protect the interest of those who created the need for these particular institutions. And those needs can be eradicated as easily as people making up their mind that basic human rights has the #1 priority in our being. But no, they don't do that. The church just sits back and get big. The people go into church hoping they're going to get a blessing. And they're taking every little dime they can rape and scrape, putting it in offerings, tithing, and the pastors are coming up with limousines, a whole bunch of them. They're living in what they call these big, I don't even know the name of these big resorts and things that they own, mansions and stuff that they own. These preachers, look at them. Look at your biggest preachers. Look at your mega preachers, every last one of them. How many of them live in a parsonage? How many of them live in a house like your house? How many of your mega preachers live in a house like your house? And you keep giving them money. And they don't go to God and ask God for money. They do not go to God and ask God for one red cent. They come to you. And if you can give it to them, every last one of you are giving it to them. But you let your poor and your suffering and those that's hurting go to the church and ask for a handout. I mean, it better be a little small handout. But if it's anything really, and don't let it be more than 2 or 3 people, what do they tell you to do? Everybody come up to the front and hold hands and bow their heads and pray to God to bless you. Well, why don't, when the pastor needs money, why don't all of you go up front and pray to God to bless the pastor or to bless the church? Well, many of you do. But how does that blessing come about? It comes about by your hands. But when you go to God and pray for you, or the church goes to God and pray for you, there are no hands to do anything but maybe a charity. So I call that, ladies and gentlemen, knowing the true God, the God of love, the God of basic human rights. I tell you that the church is a fake church. Now, I've been in church mostly all my life, listening to the lies that people tell. And why do I say lies? I say because they say one thing and do another. A straight up lie. Look, let me tell you. I live in basically a white neighborhood, white community, Woodbury, Minnesota. I have asked over the past 20 years I've been living out here, every white church out here to support basic human rights. Not a single white church has ever responded to me. Has ever responded to me. Not a single one. But not just white churches. I've talked to black churches. The black church will give me an audience. I've even had a couple of churches give me a couple of dollars to help me get down the road so I can talk to somebody else. Just a couple. I would call their names, but they might be persecuted for helping me. So I just leave them out. But wherever you are, you know who you were, and you can feel good about yourself. But everybody else, you can be upset and mad with me for telling the folks. But you are feeling a little better because I didn't call your name either. But you know, you didn't do a darn thing. And as a result, this country, the United States of America, have a lot of people suffering. I mean, more people than probably in a long time. But not just America, the people all over the world. And these rainstorms and all this kind of stuff, you better wake up. You better wake up, because when you say the power is out, hundreds of thousands are out, when you say the fires are burning and thousands of people have homes are being burned, these people gotta be re-upped. And the damages that being done, I'm sure that insurance will not be able to cover all of this stuff. So in order to fix the problems that exist today that's being created by our separation from it or denial of it, is going to require that you put your hands to it. And if you keep the attitude that you have right now, before you put your hands to it, you'd rather pick up a gun and kill anybody that's demanding something. Wow, this sounds like hell. And you know, I've told you that this is hell that we're living in. So what am I talking to you about today? I'm talking to you today about your government is fake. So if you want to fix this government, make sure that the government addresses all the concerns of the people. And what are those concerns for survival? It has to do with what? It has to do with food. People can't live without food. It has to do with clothing. People need coverings. It has to do with shelter. People need a place to live, to be separate from the elements. It has to do with education. People need to be educated so they can be better at whatever it is they've been given to do. They need health care to protect them from the diseases and the sicknesses that befall them. And in order for all of these things to be met to all of the people, the Creator, that spirit that I just got through talking about, gave mankind a desire for certain things that they would love to do. And in doing them, it would give them their greatest pleasure in life itself. And what are those things that have been designed and given to them for them to do? It's a part in the process of creating the goods and services that are essential for the survival of humankind. In other words, people need these basic human rights for survival. The maker who made you set it up so that you, the people, can go and do those things, and all of the requirements necessary in abundance would be made. But the liar came around and told you you need money to do it. You need debt. You need credit. You need taxes. You need all of those lies, and you buying them. You are buying those lies. Fake church. Fake church. It is you who are supposed to correct the state. You just fall in suit. And the evidence is when the state put up before you Two evil representatives, people who had proven, who had documentation, evidence that they were crooked, that they were just demons riding around in a suit. You went to the polls and voted for them. It didn't matter whether you voted for Trump or you voted for Clinton. You were voting for evil. Why? Because you do not know righteousness. That means you do not know God. And you ought to be ashamed of yourself on a Sunday morning. All of you are going to have your beautiful clothes on, your big hats, showing people that God has been good to you. And they're going to be all on TV. The big mega church is going to have stadiums running over with people. And some preacher standing before you saying, smile, because the day just might be the day that God has for you. You silly fool. The government and the church are both fake on your power. On your power. You can't blame the devil. It is you that's doing this. The devil might have said, jump off the bridge, but you jumped. The devil didn't. Bye-bye.